Arles.
Arles is the town where I grew up. I grew up here in the countryside. I'm very related to it since my childhood. On the one side, it's all the environment and the wetlands in the Camargue, and on the other side, it's all the culture and the heritage from Roman time to Van Gogh, and then later to what we try to do now.
And you even went to school here, right?
I went, yeah. I went here for 5 years.
Maja Sacher.
My grandmother, Maja Sacher, was a collector that I admired greatly. So she came to see us in the Camargue sometimes, but she also loved to invite me to Basel, where the collection was housed. And later on, she also asked me to participate in the family collection.
Oh.
By being first an observer of the Maja Hoffmann collection, and then, which I am still, I'm not an observer now, I'm the vice president.
And it was an inspiration in terms of collecting?
Absolutely, yeah. As well, her house was a big inspiration. She started to collect together with my grandfather, who died early, and then she gave a donation to the town of Basel. She deposited a big part of their collection in the museum, and then she built the Museum für Gegenwartskunst, which is the new museum, which originally was meant to be for art after the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the first of its kind, actually, at the time it was built. This is more or less when I joined the foundation, 1977.
But in a way to see what's important in art.
To see what's important? Yeah.
Yes, she was able to detect, right?
Yes. Yeah, she was interested in contemporary art, which is also my major interest.
So this was the inspiration?
Yes, absolutely.
And what was the relation to artists?
The relation to artists was, it depends, of course. I met a lot of artists through the Maja Hoffmann Stiftung.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But did you observe your grandma with the artist?
Yes, also.
Like what artist?
But as well, I saw her with, for instance, Slava Rostropovich too.
Wow.
I saw her with Jean Tinguely. And she was telling a lot of stories about, from times where I was too young probably, so about Braque and Picasso, about Jean Arp, about a lot of artists.
Van Gogh.
Van Gogh is one of the feet of our work in art. Van Gogh is just a very touching image, a very touching person.
Yes.
It's an incredible story. He just jumped off the train here. He stayed here for 18 months and he produced his best paintings. We have a lot of him still in the town, not because of the things that he painted, but his spirit is a little everywhere. It's also in the building that Frank Gehry did for us. A big inspiration, yeah.
And your father liked very much Van Gogh?
I think my father wanted to make the heritage of Van Gogh, wanted to repair an error of history. He wanted Van Gogh to be represented in art. Films are having a big space in my personal collection, which is not like the Maja Hoffmann Foundation, although they also take important place in the Maja Hoffmann Foundation. I believe that it's the documentation of the century, of the past century and now the years to come, and artist film I'm particularly interested in. I also participated in making documentaries come true.
Yes.
Or to existence, and it's a part of my life that I enjoy a lot.
Yes, it seems to be very important in your biography, right?
Yeah, probably. It is important in my biography, and it's important to the years we are living in. Birds have no boundaries, and they can fly without passports. And they really, since my very young age, as my father is an ornithologist, or was an ornithologist, I've been growing up with birds. So they can be spectacular like the flamingos, but they can also be like the little birds, the honeysuckler, or I don't know how you call them in English.
But so you spend some time
pollinate the plants.
Ah, oui.
Yeah.
So you observe a lot the birds with your father? Or
I did, yeah. I did.
Because there's a natural reserve in Camargue?
There is a natural reserve in the Camargue, but we also travel to Africa or to Mongolia, and every time we're traveling with him, he would take his binoculars, and he would discover new species, and
wow.
he would drive looking into the sky.
So it was an inspiration too?
Absolutely, yeah. Yes.
And Gehry.
Frank, yeah. Frank Gehry. I knew Frank from the editing of Sidney Pollack's movie. So when I first met him, I had the feeling I knew him already, which is a little strange. It doesn't happen so often. And we started a conversation about building a building here in Arles, next to the railway refurbishments. And Frank said yes, and I was quite proud of it at the time, because he was actually building only big buildings, and I wanted to do a smaller building.
But it's still a big one for Arles.
Well, Frank said, I'll help you for your small project. So I told him, yeah, so we understand each other very well. Actually, we did this building exchanging a lot of ideas. It took long because in the beginning we were not accepted completely by the Architecte des Bâtiments de France. This was all new territory for me, but for him, he was pretty used how to deal with the projection. And I'm very proud of the building we are finishing right now with him, and we exchange a lot about it. We did a lot of workshops, also with the group that has been in charge of thinking the whole project since the beginning. So it was actually, the process was really interesting, because it's not only a relationship about the building, it's encompassing the whole program.
And what's really fascinating about the spirit of Frank Gehry?
Well, Frank is forever young and very, very witty at the same time, and he knows when there is a conversation that you don't need all the responses at once. He knows how to fill gaps, which is also an important definition of our program here with the archipelago of Edouard Glissant. We work on different islands, but we are very interested in what's going on between the different islands. And this is where Frank was instrumental at making this happening. In his building, you have the heritage, you have Van Gogh, but you have mostly Frank and our project inside. And
if you could explain in 2 sentences the project?
No, I cannot.
Thank you. Chassagnette.
Chassagnette. Yum. No, Chassagnette is the organic restaurant here in the outskirts of Arles. It's also more, it starts more with the concept than with the classical way of opening a restaurant. Chassagnette is first a big garden, then it's asking, we are with the second chef. I think we opened in 2004, I think, in Chassagnette. And it's our second chef, Armand, who did it. And, so it's putting together the natural resources with the chef, and it was, to show that you can eat well by eating also organic. Now, everybody knows that now, but trust me, it was not the case when we started.
So you are curious of a lot of things, right? It's not only about art.
I am bulimic. No, I'm very curious of a lot of things, but it's all the same thing, actually.
Why?
It's what is going on now and what is needed now, so that we can continue to be an active population, active inhabitants of the world.
The next question, naturally, is about hospitality.
Hospitality is part of our program here.
Mm-hmm.
The region is really well known for its hospitality. Local is very important to me, and the transition from the local to the global also makes sense, but all in an organic way, one step after the other. So hospitality is key. We did a big symposium on this in 2018. The notion of hospitality in the philosophical way is really important, because when you open and you invite somebody, you have to show a lot of qualities, but openness and diversity to your host, which is one of the fundamentals of what we want to do here.
Yes, but what you do is that you open some hotel, right?
Well, I opened hotels, yeah, but the hotels are much more hubs where people can meet than hotels, Relais Chateau or whatever.
Mm.
There were, especially in the winter, there is a season where all the Arles hotels are closed, because Arles is up to now a seasonal town that gets used by the visitors. It gets used by the tourists de passage.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little to the detriment of the town, if the town wants to project itself into the well started, we are already in the middle of it, of the 21st century. When we started, we were at the end of the last century, right? So, yes, it's important, and we create jobs on the way, and maybe we don't take jobs away, because we come at a place where there was no activity in the winter, for instance. The new Hotel Arlatan that we did with Jorge Pardo is really open the whole winter, and it becomes a meeting point for people who come now here to Arles, to visit our project, discussion topic, and it's like a Gesamtkunstwerk too. It's an artistic gesture. It's not a hotel. So it's really, I have many more things to say about this, but your blog only asks short responses, so I will not get into this.
Because it's beginning of 21st century, we have no time. If we are projecting, what about collection? Why your collection?
Collection, I'm part of this Maja Hoffmann Foundation, which is a very well-known collection and deposited in Switzerland in a museum. Collection, I'm at a moment where the Maja Hoffmann Foundation had her identity very well defined. I was wanting to also collect other things personally, so I started also personal collection. So that's the reason why I started late. And I collect by myself. I don't have advisors for the collection. Now, although I admire many collectors and many collections, I'm more interested in producing or commissioning pieces right now, which come after we have a discourse, and which come to take a place that is a declaration of intention, right? As well from the artist, then from me, in that case as a collector. But then it makes of me a producer more than a collector, where we get back to your film.
Yes,
to your
question.
Question, yeah.
And in fact, you live with a lot of artists. You meet a lot of artists all the time.
Yeah. I prefer to meet artists than bankers.
A special attention to details.
Yeah, I'm more a starter than a follow-upper, but I'm building up a team here in Arles, particularly, where we go all the way into details.
And you like details?
Not so much.
It looks like that.
Well, I don't know. If you go in my houses, you will see that the volumes and the space is more important to me, and nature, the way nature relates with this space, which is more important to me than details. But okay, to respond to your question, which I don't know where it came from, but to respond, it's true that to see ugly things does not make me happy on an everyday basis. So maybe the details are more like to shape the reality. If it's what you mean.
It's everything open. Next dream.
To finish the dream I am building now. This is a collection, okay, we use the word again. It's a collection of many dreams, and to have the space for other people to dream and to think in our place here in Arles, which is one of the projects of the Luma Foundation. Albeit it's the most important, and it will probably stay the most biggest. To have these things happening, the possibility of having things happening here is my next dream. It's already happening, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Merci.